got hot under the collar.
Hot under the collar is number 5. Nice. Was that you, Michelle?
No.
Heather.
Heather. Good on you, Heather.
Temperature dropping.
Close. There is another way that I describe it, Peter, but it's in the ballpark. I'd certainly have to mark it as a common answer. Sorry, what was that?
Sarah said broken heart.
Broken heart, yes.
And I think it's 2 below par, or 2 under par, something like that.
2 under par. Yes, it's a golf term. That's right.
So that'll be an eagle.
It would be an eagle. If you broke that, I'd definitely have to write as a correct answer, wouldn't I?
And there's a fat chance of me getting one.
Number 3. Nice, Peter. Nice.
Head in the sand.
Head in the sand. Number 6. You see, you guys are getting good at this. So Peter said temperature dropping for number 1. Not wrong, but there's another way that people usually say it. Any ideas?
Thank you. I've just had a cup of tea delivered.
Oh, Peter,
nice.
Seriously.
When's our delivery coming?
Good,
Yes.
good service here.
Could you send that person around to every one of our houses, please?
Yeah, almond cap to Sydney, thanks.
Oh, we are getting a bit fancy for my liking. Good morning, Ratika and Yanning. How are you guys?
Morning.
So we're doing the bamboozle. Number 1 is the one. We're looking for another response to number 1.
The temperature's dropping?
Yeah, that's what Peter said.
Sorry, Peter. Wasn't listening.
No, that's right. Look, normally what people say is falling temperature. Falling temperature. Very good. All right, folks. So welcome to this session. This one is all about online training. So yeah, I think we've just hit, we're past 10:30. So let's make a start. It's all about the Online Trainers Toolkit. So this session and the final 2 sessions are ones that we added into this course when COVID arrived. So prior to COVID-19, we didn't have these final 3 sessions that you're going to see today. And you know, one of the adult learning principles is to solve a problem. And that's really where this session was born out of. It was born out of solving a problem. And the problem was that it was really, really hard there for a long while for people to get 8 participants for presentations that they needed to present. Many of our students in this course come to the Dell Part 2 course because we get together a custom group. We get people together for you and you deliver to the other students. You deliver your presentations to them. They listen to yours and they deliver theirs and everyone goes away real happy. But when we had to start closing down classrooms due to COVID-19, that really created a bit of a hole, especially for people who wanted to complete the qualification quickly or were frankly just at the end of their studies. So we created these FLZ sessions and the Dell 2 FLZ session to fill that gap so that for those of you who booked into Part 2 via facilitator-led sessions, you will have a chance to do exactly what we're doing here, but you will be the star and you will get to deliver presentations. Now, I'm going to talk more about that in the last session of the day today. In the last session, I'm going to talk about the assessments. I'm going to talk about the specifics of how you can complete all your assessments for this cluster. But for this one, it's all about how to train online and how to teach online. And this is a very valuable skill. 12 months ago, some people taught online. A lot of people taught face-to-face and thought, I'll never have to train online. I'm just going to be a face-to-face teacher. We had people who enrolled in this course thinking that was the way things were going to be. And we've learned over the past 6 or 8 months that it's not necessarily the case and that becoming an online trainer might be something for everyone these days, not just teaching in face-to-face classrooms all the time. So this session is all about how to do that with spectacular effect. We'll go through the theme of it. We'll talk about the philosophies of it. And I'm going to give you a lot of really specific advice on how to be effective as an online trainer, webinar presenter, whatever term you want to use. And so the strategies to engage and enliven online training, because it's really that engagement and that enlivenment that makes success. Tashana, welcome. Good to have you here. Folks, are there any questions at all? Does that make sense? Can you see the logic of why we're doing this? Okay, brilliant. That works for me. So this session is all about the mechanics of how to train online. And then after this session, we change speed. The second session remaining this afternoon, session number 6, as we describe it, is all about how to use Zoom. Now, you guys are already using Zoom as participants, but during that session, we're going to show you how to use Zoom as a presenter. We're going to show you how to set up a Zoom account. We're going to show you how to set up and schedule Zoom meetings. We're going to show you how to deliver in Zoom and all the little bells and whistles you get as a presenter, some of which you don't see as an attendee in your current mode. So we're going to show you all that stuff and show you how you can present using Zoom. That's our second session today. And the third one is all about the assessments. We focus on the assessments. So that's the plan for the remainder of this Dell Part 1 cluster and what we're going to be working on this afternoon. Are there any questions that anyone wants to ask? Nope. Okay. Nope is good. As you have questions during the session, do pipe up though. Did somebody just pop up then with a question? No, I think it's just background noise from somewhere. That's okay. And what I will do is I'm just going to mute some folks and that will minimize the background noise. So just turn your audio back on when you're ready to talk. You're happy to do that? Just go like this. Makes me happy. Okay, good stuff. Peter obviously was not happy with his coffee and he's gone for a refill already or something. He's obviously going to get pretty fired up today. That's not a problem. So for those who joined us early, we had the warm up and I'll just show you the solutions here. That one, oops, I'll have to go through them. Falling temperature, number 2 is 2 under par. Number 3, fat chance, broken heart, hot under the collar, and head in the sand. Okay, so for those of you early, good job, got them all. Very, very happy about that. So this is what we're going to cover during this session. We're going to talk about 6 things. The first is going to be the present landscape. What is happening with online training? What does it look like? We can talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the 6 steps for success. You do these 6 steps, you're going to be in great shape. Number 3, we're going to give participants a taster. A taster. Now, taster are more general themes about what works in online training. If you can take those themes on board, you can give your participants a taster of what quality online training looks like. Number 4 is the importance of core online. Core is closers, openers, revisitors, and energizers. It's a way of categorizing the activities that we do during an online class or a face-to-face class. And we're going to talk about that in the context of delivering an online session during this session. And number 5 is activities that work. We're going to present some specific activities and ideas to consider that will create fantastic online training. And number 6, we're going to give you a chance to do some action planning for success to work out what's going to work for you moving forward after this session. Is there any questions about that, folks, that you'd like to ask? Okay, then let's get going. Number 1 on our list is the present landscape. So here's my question for you. What is happening now? Now, you guys have probably attended some online training and some webinars aside from what you're seeing here with Mr. Wed. And my question to you is, what are you seeing out there? Are you seeing like the girl, animated, engaged, having fun, or like the gentleman, you'd rather have a good old nap, and even if you didn't feel like a nap when it started, you sure feel like one half an hour into the presentation. And what I want to encourage you to do here is just share your experiences. So tell us what has happened to you. What have been your experiences? It can be good or bad. Please share. So let's use the microphone. We're just looking for 2 or 3 people to share their stories as to maybe a session that they've seen, which was great or not so great. Who'd like to go first?
I've got a good one. I was did a short training course in a 40 minutes in a course that was ongoing. I like having the videos so I can see people, but that wasn't a pattern in that course thus far. So when I got everyone to turn their videos on, someone was in bed in like a Yogi Bear onesie, watching the webinar, which explains the degree of interaction that had been happening.
Right.
So obviously people were turning up, but they weren't.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned the Yogi Bear onesie, because if I stand up, no, maybe I shouldn't. Okay, well, that's an interesting story. And it's interesting that you had the courage to say, look, let's get our videos going, because then we can see what people are doing, what they're focusing on, and their level of concentration on the webinar and what's happening. And we can also get a feel for their level of understanding. Apart from that, it's just really good for other participants to see each other. You don't want to be just looking at me. Trust me, there's nothing special to look at. Okay, but you guys can look at each other and get a feel for the other students and help each other. Provides a lot of benefit for you, doesn't it? So that is awesome. I'm glad you've done that, Michelle. It's interesting that your predecessors didn't, unfortunately, for Yogi Bear Girl. Who else would like to share?
Yogi Bear Boy, by the way.
Yogi Bear Boy. Okay, no better, no worse. Not convinced it's better. But anyway, who else would like to share?
I've just finished online residential schools that ran for 4 days, between 9 and 5, with only lunch breaks. And it was like watching dog poo turn white.
Right. I've got dogs, so I know what that's like for those of you who aren't familiar. And it's not a good process, and you don't want to be there. And was it engaging, Heather? Were they making an effort to really get you and the other participants involved?
Yeah, I guess. It was a massive information that we would normally do face-to-face and be interactive with our cohort. But because of COVID, they had to madly scramble and deliver everything online to satisfy organisational requirements. So, yeah, they didn't have time to put much thought into it.
Yeah. Now, that's interesting you say that, because I'm going to challenge that. Not because I'm having a go at you, but seriously, how long do you have to think about the best way to run it? Will we run it all day long? We run lots of breaks. We cut it up into short, sharp segments, which we know works much better than long.
Yeah.
Long is bad, okay? It's hard enough to concentrate on long in a classroom when you've got, so much less distractions.
Yeah.
But in an online environment, when people can potentially go to their phone or be looking at Facebook or getting interrupted by other people, we want to stop all those things from happening so we've got good quality training happening. And, it's interesting that you say that. They didn't have time. Well, they had time. They just didn't try hard enough, would be how I'd put it. And you can create an interactivity relatively easily. You just got to have a commitment to, we can get this done. And so many stories I've heard from school teachers and parents this year about the diverse range of school teachers and how some just adjusted like that. They just snapped into it and created really, really interesting online experiences for their students. And others just pretended this COVID thing isn't happening. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to do my thing. It'll be like a face-to-face classroom, or I just won't interact with the kids at all. And that created a lot of problems for those parents and those kids. So thanks for sharing, Heather. I appreciate it. Can I get one more story from somebody?
I had a story that was similar to Heather's, so I might use another example. We use Microsoft Teams often.
Yeah.
And we absolutely encourage everyone to have their cameras on. But if you've noticed in Microsoft Teams, only a few faces will show up at the bottom. So if you've got, 20 people in there, only say 6 people's face will show up. And so only those people who are speaking will have their cameras on, because they know that their cameras won't actually show anyone, because there's so many people in the room. So we worked out, if you go on team mode or together mode, it actually creates a lecture theatre, and it just plops your face onto a chair, and it looks really funny. And, you know, you've got everyone waving at each other. It also means that you can see everybody at all times. So everyone knows they're on camera and more likely to be engaged. And we definitely saw a big difference and improvement when we did that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I love it. And you know, I'm all for the video. And our experience is that when students are there and they're watching and they're using the video, that they have a much better experience and the feedback is much better. Yep. So, you know, and we experimented with that. We thought, well, you know, will students be a bit nervous about that? And they were. But so we tried one where we didn't have the video, and the feedback was, it was okay. It was good. But every time we put the videos on, the feedback is much better because the students enjoy that engagement. So, you know, all good from that perspective. Okay, guys, thank you very much for sharing. It's been really interesting to hear your feedback because, you know, it was most of the classes where we ask for feedback like this, we get a lot of the negative stuff. But we have noticed a bit of a turnaround the last couple of months that we're starting to hear more positive stories. And we heard a bit of that today. So that's good. So I'm hoping out there in the webinar universe, the online training universe, that people are getting clued up and realizing what works and being brave enough to embrace it. So maybe that's a lead in to talk about what we need to do in terms of content today and what that bravery looks like and what the steps for success are. And we've got 6 of them we're going to share with you. If you can embrace these 6 steps, you're going to go a long way to being a fantastic online presenter. Okay, number 1 is that it all starts with the planning. Okay. And this is very much the case in face-to-face training as well as online training. So there's no great secret there. But in an online environment, if you just rock up and you're ready, you're going to start training and you haven't done your preparation, it's going to be really hard because you've got to master the technology. You've got to maintain that engagement with your audience and at the same time know what you're going to be doing and be organized to do it. And an online environment when all you've got is that little hole right there in front of you and your voice and your slides, if you're not ready, bad things can happen. So it all starts with the planning. And in terms of planning, there's some interesting numbers here. Now, I'm a numbers guy. So numbers appeal to me. And these numbers you see on the screen at the moment, the 90-20-10 rule, these are the rules for face-to-face training. And these numbers basically are based on a lot of research which showed that every 90 minutes during a training session, you need to have a physical break. Okay. If you don't have that physical break about every 90 minutes, people just get wasted. They lose concentration. They're done. Okay. So if you're trying to do something in a face-to-face environment that's more than 90 minutes, you're up against a long haul. You need to do something to give people a physical break. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a long break. It could be just a short one. But the interesting thing about this is when you think about the quality training, what do we tend to do? We tend to start in the morning, have a morning session, have morning tea, have the post-morning tea session, then have lunch. After lunch, we have afternoon tea, and then finish the day. And you break things up. And if you do the maths, usually those sessions are about an hour and a half. And it's no accident because we know that that works. The 20 minutes is all about giving people a mental break. So just giving them a little bit of a chance to do something different and focus on some different content rather than hammer home the same thing for more than 20 minutes. Okay. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. Some of you may have heard. Anyone heard of Pomodoro? It's very popular. I'm glad you're familiar with it. Have you used it? Yep. It's terrific. Now, a Pomodoro, I think, is the Italian word.
I used it to write I used it to write my honours thesis.
There you go. So you explain it, Heather. I'm just going to chill back for a second. How does it work? What's the essentials in 30 seconds?
The essentials are that you for writing, that you've already done all your pre-reading and you just write for 25 minutes and then you give yourself a 5-minute break. So you go 25-5, 25-5, 25-5, and then you give yourself a really long break and then you come back, do 25-5, 25-5.
I think Heather invented the Pomodoro technique.
Yeah, no such luck.
No, that's such like a great explanation, though. That's exactly how it works. Okay. And whereas most people intuitively think, I'll just keep working, work. But the problem is after that first half hour, their productivity starts to suffer and they don't realize. So go hard for 25, take your 5-minute break and then go hard for another 25 and rinse and repeat. And yes, have those long breaks. Don't try and do that all day long. Okay. And that mental break fits in with that. Every 20 minutes, change focus, have a mental break, works really, really well. The third one is get people involved, get them to do something every 10 minutes. Now, it doesn't need to be anything overly drastic. It could be as simple as something I did a few minutes ago of saying, okay, let's hear some of your stories. What have you seen that's worked and what you've seen that has not worked, and give you a chance to share. And that's a group activity, and that's all you need to do. Now, not everyone contributes to that, but two things are happening. One, you're listening to different people. And the second thing that happens is you're thinking about what you might contribute. Okay, so, take these things on board because they're really, really valuable. Now, what's interesting about these numbers is further research was done about these numbers in an online environment, and they decided the numbers halve. So instead of being 90, 20, 10, it's now 45, 10, 5. So we need to be taking some sort of physical break, even if it's quick, every 45 minutes. We need to have that change of mental focus every 10 minutes. Every 5 minutes, we want to have some sort of activity or getting people involved. Okay. Intuitively, does this make sense? Has anyone got any philosophical objections to what we've covered here?
No objection, just a quick question.
Yes.
Can you tell us where these studies are from?
You know what? I can find out and I can send it to you, Ratika.
Awesome, thank you.
No worries. I just make myself a note with a trusty pen.
I'd love to see that too.
Okay.
I love studies on these things. Thanks.
That was Michelle, right?
Yep.
Sure.
I'm going to be a pain. I've got one other question. Yesterday, Diane mentioned...
I'm sorry, I only allow you one question per webinar.
I'm trying to focus on that 10-minute involvement component.
Go for it, Ratika. I like it. What's your question?
Yesterday, Diane mentioned that the studies had showed that about 65% of us were visual learners.
Yes.
Can I ask where that data is from, and what, like with the remaining 35%, what percent is kinesthetic and auditory if we know them?
Okay, sure. I will find out. I do not know the answer to that one.
Thanks.
I half know the answer to the 90, 20, 10, but I don't want to say it in case I'm wrong.
Oh,
but I'll get that information to you and Michelle, and I'll find out about the visual learner percentage as well, where that came from. Okay, awesome. Any other questions, folks? And I thank you for making it fair. After this session, I'm going to give you homework. You should give me homework too. So that's all good. All right, next slide. Oops, number 2 is to consider pre-session activities. So for those of you who've been getting here nice and early, participating in the bamboozles, etc., like we did at the start of the session, good on you. Thank you very much. It's really, really important. I'm sure at other parts during this course, this will come up and be explained to you. But basically, it's about getting students in the mood for the learning and helping them prepare for the learning, switching their brains from work or looking after kids or whatever they've been doing to getting ready for the training. Don't just start straight away with the training. We know that doesn't work well. Okay. So those pre-session activities are great in that respect. And also it gives you a chance to just reward people for being early, give them something to do and something to chat about, and hopefully something fun. You'll notice these pre-session activities don't tend to be too serious. They're not the stuff that's going to cause you to, be competent or not yet competent. It's designed to ease you into the training, give you some extra information and have a bit of fun. Okay. And I love it. Huge fan of it. When I go to a webinar and I paid my money for a webinar and the webinar presenter doesn't even rock up until the start time, I got to tell you, I hate that. I hate it. You know, you ask your students to get there early. Surely you can get there early yourself as well. Okay, so that's my advice on that one. Examples of pre-session activities: word puzzles, brain teasers, interesting statistics. We're going to talk about that during this session. Cartoons with a point as opposed to meaningless cartoons just to give us a laugh. Try and make it relevant. And brief introductions where you might introduce yourself as the presenter or have other students introduce themselves or each other or something along those lines. Okay, so lots of options there for soft openers. Number 3 on the list. There are others, but we will move forward. Number 3 is to avoid distractions. So there's so many potential distractions, especially in an online environment. We've got to try and do our best to communicate to our students that we'd prefer that that's not happening and that you have a chance to focus. And that's why we send you those letters before you come here so that hopefully you can tell everyone at work, please, not today, leave me alone, I'm training. And it's really, really difficult to do sometimes. Like some of the distractions you deal with in an online environment are pretty serious, like the list that's on the screen. You know, we've got Twitter, we've got Spotify, email, the internet, pictures, work, and we've got people. People can be really distracting as well. So try to minimize those distractions because after all, we're in the type of environment that's best summed up by the next slide. We are competing for learner attention more than ever before. And this girl, she's feeling fantastic. She's the center of attention. Everyone's getting their phones out because they're going to take a photo of her. And the truth is they're checking their Insta feed. You know, that's the way the world is a little bit these days. So we do have to compete hard. And as a result, when we're delivering online training, take nothing for granted. Be ready to go. Do your best to prepare. Otherwise, there will be suffering. And most of that suffering is unfortunately for your attendees. Number 4 in the secrets to success is to use a hands-free headset or use something that allows you to get your hands moving. Okay. Now, I'm different to all of our other presenters. I've got these things in my ears, but I've actually got a physical microphone on a stand because I love this microphone. Anyway, I've got this on the stand and it just sits there out of the road and I'm allowed to do whatever. Okay. Microphones in computers have got so good in recent years, and I suspect they're about to get a whole lot better post-COVID because everybody's using them. So they're to the extent now we can run webinars and online training pretty well with the microphone in your computer, and that's fine. But if you're going to be presenting a lot of professional webinars, if that's your job, if you're going to be doing a lot, consider getting another type of microphone. And I'm super excited because I love this microphone, but I ordered another one on Amazon last night and it arrives tomorrow. So if you are still doing more facilitator-led sessions, I hope we get to connect again and you can tell me about my new microphone next time I see you. What does this do? It creates more authentic delivery. It allows presenters to manage other webinars features more easily, improves audio quality. It's lots of wins. Number 5 is to involve early and often. So get your participants involved. This is probably the number 1 theme from today's session is get people involved. Take the pressure off yourself. Okay, you don't have to be the guru. You don't have to justify that you're the presenter by giving them everything you know and explaining all your knowledge. Let other people get involved, have activities, and let them share their wisdom as well. So that leads us to our poll for this session. How often would you be seeking to involve the group? So that poll has just launched. The responses are not at all, rarely, sometimes, regularly, most of the time or all of the time. What do you think is the appropriate response? Pop it in the poll. I see the votes are starting to come in already. Okay, everyone has voted. You are very fast. So let's end the poll and let's see what we got. So I'll share those results so you can see them. They should be popping up on your screen now. And we've got one person saying sometimes, A couple of people saying regularly, a few most of the times, and one all of the time. Look, I'm really, really super happy with those answers. I don't want to see not at all or rarely, or you and I are going to have a philosophical conflict. Okay. It is important to get people involved regularly, most of the time, a lot of the time. Choice is yours as to how much. It maybe depends a little bit about your level of familiarity with the group. But it is important. So I do take a bit of heart out of those results. So thank you. With respect to all the time, does it need to be all of the time? Not necessarily, but there's nothing wrong with all of the time. There is one webinar presenter. I've forgotten his name at the moment. He's a Japanese gentleman. I went along to one of his sessions once because I'd heard about him, and it was amazing. He had no content. I mean, he had nothing. He presented nothing. All he did was have these really, really good quality slides with questions on them. And he would ask the questions, and then the participants would talk through what they thought the answers were. He'd add his 2 cents to it, and in a very subtle way, and just direct the group as to where they go and what their opinions were and what they were learning. And at the end of the session, they learned a stack, but he never, ever showed them a slide where he was presenting something or teaching something. A really, really interesting approach. And I want to get more like that guy because it was very, very effective. All right. How could we involve the audience online? This is an important question. So I'd like you to use the chat for this one. So pop open your chat, and I want you to write down as many ideas as you can. Write one, hit enter. Write one, hit enter. Write another one, hit enter. Let's see how many answers we can get. How could you involve the audience when you're presenting online? Start popping those answers in. Ratika, straight out of the blocks with group discussions. Michelle's got polls. Yanning, you've written to me privately. If you change it to everyone, that'd be great. And you've written ask questions, which is an outstanding response. Ratika asked for examples, ask questions. From Heather, same answer Yanning had. Kahoot. Oh, Ratika, I'm feeling you. We love the Kahoot. Questions from Peter. Yes, Sarah, brainstorming. Case studies. Case studies are really good. And ask questions from Tashana. Awesome. These are all fantastic answers. Now, I'd like to think by the end of the session, you'll maybe have a list of 20 or more. Okay. And we are going to cover some very specific things to help you with that as we move through the webinar. All right. Good stuff. Good answers. Love your work. Thank you, everybody. Here's some examples we showed earlier. We came up with earlier. A show of hands. Just ask people yes or no. Show your hands. Text chat. Okay, just the chat itself. You can do so much with the chat, like that little activity we just did. Online breakout rooms. We don't use that too much during the facilitator-led sessions because it can take up a fair bit of time. And I'm now looking at the time, and I think I'm going to have time to let one loose at the end of this session. That is the plan. So stay tuned for that. A shared whiteboard. I'll be showing you that during this session. Polls, quizzes, photo share. We'll have a couple of examples of that later in this webinar. And stretch breaks, one of our favorites. Okay. So that's a good little list there of some of the things you can do to enliven your webinars. And if you're able to do those things and utilize those things to your advantage, your webinars, your online training is going to stand out compared to the rest of the world. That's basically it. Okay. So please do those types of things. All right. Now, one of the things on that list is a shared whiteboard. So I'd like to show you how that works. So this is functionality that exists in most webinar type software, not all, but most, and it is in Zoom. In fact, we're going to give you a chance to have a crack at this in a moment, but I'll just explain the philosophy first. There's lots of ways you can do it. You can create a line, and with that line, I might have some numbers on it. I might say, how often does it rain every month where you live? How often does it rain? And some people might go, well, it rains 10 days a month. Somebody might go, about 17 days a month. Okay, maybe 23. Okay, good. You can get responses and see it graphically, and some people really like visuals and like graphics. You might alternatively have an agree or disagree question. Okay, and then people have the chance to pop their answers on whether they agree or disagree with the statement you give them. Or alternatively, you might do something a bit more creative, like, how are you going with this training so far? Are you drowning? You're swimming okay? You're riding the wave, man. And that's when you can start to get really creative. Now I'm going to give you a chance to show your answers here. You can either show it on the waves or on the line, because I have the shared whiteboard open for you. What you want to do is you want to look along your Zoom control panel for a word that says annotate. Who can see annotate? Yes, huge flurry of hands straight away. Have a look for annotate, or it might say drawing, or otherwise, if you've got a more option, click on more and look for annotate.
I just found it under view options at the top.
View options. Okay. So it's different with different software. So some people will have it just sitting there looking at them. Some will have it under view options. Some will have it on under more. And some of you just won't have it at all. And I suspect that Peter, being on an iPad, might be one of those folks who is not going to find this. Okay. But hopefully you will. And once you find it, click on it, and then a little drawing toolbar comes up, and you start drawing like our person who did the purple circle did. And just draw. Go for your life. Knock yourself out. Mess with my screen. Peters, you got it going on the iPad, buddy. Good stuff. Ratika's up and running. Michelle, you got it going on with your arrow.
Yeah, I can't do it, actually. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Have you found an option, Tashana?
No, I can't see me there.
Yeah, so it either says view options or more annotate is what you want to find. And once you find it, you just click on it, and then it provides you with another little toolbar where you can do all sorts of things. Can somebody find the stars? I like the stars. So those of you who got it working, go find the stars. Yes, Ratika, that's it. Sarah's on the stars as well. Nice. Michelle. Excellent. Come on, folks, make this thing busy. Go to town. Yanning, I can see that you found the reactions. I'm not sure you found the annotate yet on your system. All right.
Where should I go, actually?
Yeah, look, if you can't see it, you can't see it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Don't stress too much. Different software versions have it and some don't. Depends what device you're on, Mac, PC, iPad, phone,
Mac.
you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Using Mac.
That's okay. That's fine. All right, guys, you've had a good play and I like your work. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that. I'm going to save your drawing. So I've just done that. I've just saved your drawing, and that's awesome. And here's a couple that I prepared earlier. We've got riding the wave on the surfboard, or you could have the shark if it's going badly. Yeah. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something really unfortunate. I'm going to clear all the drawings. Sorry, folks. All right. Let's move forward. No more annotations. Don't put a beard on my picture when it comes up at the end. Okay. All right. Number 6. Give participants something else they can use straight away, something they can use straight away. And one of the things we did yesterday to sort of get you in the mood for this session was we gave you the slides. Remember when we handed out the book of readings and the session overviews yesterday? We also gave you a copy of the slides for this session. So please use those slides to refer back to this and figure out ways to make your training more animated after this session is concluded. All right. Questions or comments? It's a good place to just pause for a moment because it is our stretch break. So please don't hesitate to pop out of your chair or just move your body and get that blood flowing a little bit. I don't know if one of our other presenters has told you yet that you're actually smarter. Research says you're actually smarter when you're standing up. So that's a good thing to know. Is there any questions before we move on into the final 1/3 / second half?
Damien, can you
Yes.
just show number 6 again, because my audio and everything went off then.
Everything died for you. Yes, number 6
Yeah.
was give participants something they can use straight away.
Thank you.
No worries. Give people an easy win.
Yeah.
Okay. The example I used for that was the slides that I sent to everyone, that we sent to everyone at the first session yesterday. You've got the slides for this session. All right, let's move on because we want to give your participants a taster. Now, this is about general philosophies, TASTER. They're fairly simple and straightforward. Number one is take your participants on a journey. Okay, basically, let them know what's going to happen in the session and where you're going, and stick to that road. Okay, don't deviate. Don't deviate too far. Don't get sidetracked. Take your participants on a journey. Have a goal in mind as to where you're going to go, and let them know where that goal is going to be. Probably the main way I did that was at the end when I told you the 6 things we were going to be covering during this session. Okay, and we're now up to number 4. Okay, so take them on a journey. The A is to allow networking. Encourage networking. Encourage the participants to get involved, to be able to see each other, to be able to talk to each other, to be able to form bonds with each other. We find that that works much better than just like a one-on-one, dialogue between the presenter and you as an attendee. So allow that networking. We're social creatures and we want to socialize. Number 3 is an important one. Support self-esteem. Support self-esteem. Support the attendees feeling good about themselves. Okay. And that provides a lot of benefits to you as a presenter. But the question I want to ask is for you to answer that. So in the chat, could you tell us how you could support the building of self-esteem with your online participants? What's some of the things you could do that would make them feel good about themselves and their participation in your online training? Pop your answers in the chat. Now, there's usually a few common answers we see a lot of here. And then we get some oddball and unusual ones sometimes, which I love. Number 1, the first one off the group, off the chat is one we do here a lot. Acknowledge their contributions. Heather, you're absolutely on it. And I had to acknowledge your contribution here, Heather, by saying that's a terrific answer. Otherwise, I'd be a bit hypocritical. But it is important. People like that. It's really important. We like to feel uplifted as people. And if we do something good, we want to know about it. Number 2, Michelle's written, ask questions that draw out skills and knowledge they already have. Look, I'll admit, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I think I'm pretty good, but I know some other people who I would consider fantastic experts in the world. I'm here not so much because I'm fantastic, but I'm here because I want you to help get fantastics. And I know that a lot of you guys have already done some of this stuff before and probably done it extremely well. So I want to flesh out your knowledge as well as share mine. Acknowledge their comments in the chat group. Nice work, Ritika. Mention their names, acknowledge them. Give them achievable tasks in learning activities. Good work, Michelle. Yeah, don't set people up for failure. Okay. So give them tasks that they can complete and feel good about themselves. Refer them by their name. Yes, Ritika. I love it, Ritika. Very important, Ritika. Ritika, that's fantastic. Now, in all seriousness, it is a great answer, but don't overdo it. There is a line there. And, some people are a little robotic about it, and that can become a bit of a problem. And Peter says, share experiences. Yes. People learn by shared experiences, don't they, Peter? And it's often the stories that have impact. So give people an opportunity to share their experiences and tell their stories. And that's very valuable and very important. So I'll pause for a second in case there's anyone who wants to share an experience here, or if there's any questions or feedback or comments. You got the floor. Okay, well, you're on chairs, so maybe you're not on the floor, but that's okay. Let's move forward and let's talk about the next part of Taster. We're up to the second T, which is tickle their curiosity. Okay, we're inquisitive by nature as people. We want to have our curiosity engaged. We want to be thinking, what's that about? Or what's happening next? Or is there something coming we might like? And there's lots of ways we can tickle the curiosity of our participants. In fact, during this session, I've mentioned several things that I'm going to cover later in the session before I even got to them. Now, does anyone remember what those things were? This is sometimes a hard question. What things have I teased in the session?
what we're going to talk about.
Yes, just the six things we're going to talk about. That was enough, wasn't it? You might be saying, oh, number 4 looks really interesting. Or I wonder how Damon's going to approach number 6. So yes, that was one of them. Good. We're off the ball. We got a winner. Any others? Photo share. Remember I said photo share? We'll talk about that later. Whiteboard. I introduced the whiteboard before we got to it. Okay. There was another really good one, which I can't remember. So, but we'll come to it, I promise. But, you know, just those little things that you say, okay, we're going to cover this later. And even on a bigger scale, telling you about the remaining 2 sessions this afternoon. Some of you might be feeling a lot more comfortable now knowing that we're going to be talking about assessments in the final session. So that is valuable. All right, awesome. Interesting statistics was the one I forgot. Interesting statistics. We are coming to that. The next part of Taster is engage responses, get responses from your students. If you don't get responses from your attendees, your participants, well, they're not involved. So let's engage them and get their responses going. I think that one is pretty straightforward. And number 6 on the list is to keep it relevant to the subject. And my question for you is, why does it have to be relevant? Why does it have to be relevant to the subject? If you could pop an answer in the chat for that one, I'd appreciate it. Why is that important? Why does that make a difference that the content we're covering is relevant to the subject? Pop it in the chat. We'll give you a few seconds to get those words pumping out of your fingers. Okay, Michelle is onto it quickly. Adults learn better when it's relevant. Yeah, definitely. And I think part of that is that we're more interested, aren't we? We tune into something because we're interested in that topic, or it's important to us, or we need to do it. So as soon as a trainer starts to bear away from that topic, all of a sudden that becomes a problem. Michelle has written, it keeps, if we go on track, we might not get the things done that do need to be covered. That is important. Yeah, people get really cranky when they've gone off on a tangent and never got back to the important stuff. Heather's written to keep the learners engaged. Nice. Sarah keeps us on time, makes it easier to retain information for our students. Yeah, it does, doesn't it, Sarah? Because if you go off and talk about a whole lot of waffly stuff, sometimes it's the waffly stuff that people remember, not what they really needed to know. Adults learn for purposes. Nice, Yanning. That keyword there is purposes in it. They've got to have a purpose, got to have an intent, got to have a reason. So I love that answer. Peter, you've written participants are all there to learn the same thing. Yes. And so as soon as you start teaching something that's not that same thing, you start to lose people and start to lose their interest. Folks, give yourself a virtual gold star. I'm throwing them at you now. You're doing really, really well. Let's move on to the next part of this topic, number 5 for today, the importance of core online. Now, this is a little bit of a revisit of content you've already covered earlier in this cluster. So, but I wanted to put it in the context of online learning for you to let you know that what you've been covering in the previous sessions related primarily to face-to-face training is just as important in online training. So we've got closers, openers, revisitors, and energizers, the 4 types of activities that we use in training. Let's start with closers. You may recall that during one of the previous sessions, and I'm not sure if it was yesterday afternoon or this morning, you would have talked about 5 quick closers. This slide comes from one of those classes. The action idea list, the 1-word whip, the countdown, give one, get one, and the polls. Put simply, folks, use those things to advantage. Okay, they work just as well in an online environment as a face-to-face environment. Don't hesitate to use them when you're training online. With respect to openers, you've already seen these slides. Ask a discussion question, outline an incident, make a thought-provoking statement, use an unusual statistic, or use a visual aid or prop. Those things work really well as openers in an online environment as well. To flesh that out a little bit more, we know about ask a discussion question. You ask a question, get people to talk about it. Outline an incident. You could use a graphic like this to outline an incident and say, look, what is there any work health safety problems with that screen? Okay, and the chances are you're starting to see some things that aren't quite right and aren't really safe. Okay, but then you may have safety issues about this as well. Okay, and what's interesting about this slide is that earlier this year during this same class, one of these online facilitator-led sessions, I showed this, and one of the participants put their hand up and told me they'd seen this on a work site. And I'm thinking, you are kidding me. But these are the types of crazy things that are out there apparently. So, you know, that would be an interesting discussion starter and an interesting way of outlining that incident. Alternatively, you could just make a thought-provoking statement to get people's attention. Okay. You could use an unusual statistic, and I said I would talk about statistics, so let's look at a couple of examples. This one is a beauty. Who's lost their remote control to their TV during their life? Okay, I'm the only one with hands up, but I think there's a little bit of a lack of honesty and transparency happening at the moment. Okay, that's okay. And if you don't watch TV, that's fine too, because my wife does not like TV. But anyway, if you've lost your TV remote, don't panic, because a study by Logitech revealed that there's nearly a 50% chance that your lost remote control is stuck behind your sofa cushions. Okay, and I know this because I've been teaching this class for a while now, and sure enough, one day we couldn't find the remote, and I said, okay, I know something about this. There's almost a 50% chance that's in the sofa cushions. And guess what? It was. And then there was another time that I'm a little bit more embarrassed about, where there's a 4% chance it's somewhere else. And yes, I found the remote there because I put it there, and that was inside the fridge. I went to make myself some lunch, had the remote in my hand. I put it down to pick up some cheese or ham or something, forgot that I'd put it there, went back to the TV. No one could find the remote anywhere, but it was just chillaxing in the fridge. All right, another statistic of interest is that technically only 2% of people can multitask successfully, the rest multi-switch. So that was some research. You know, we all talk about multitasking and getting good at doing multiple things at once. In truth, most people can't do that very well. They actually multi-switch from one task to another task to another task to another task very, very quickly. And trust me, I am in the 98%. All right. In addition to that one, there's use a visual aid or prop. And I'm going to give you an example of this. The old colored ball of wool. And so what we could do with the colored ball of wool is we could, you know, think of some ways of using that graphic. You could talk about how our fabric of society is made up of different threads, of different colors, of different visuals, of different visions. How even though it's just one long piece that appears not to connect, we can organize it in an organized way. Okay. That everything comes together as a whole, you know, so many possibilities. And that's what a photo share is about. Okay. Okay, revisitors, unjumble. We can put a word there and unjumble it. You'll have an example of that if you're going to all the facilitator-led sessions where we do that in one of the clusters. You can put steps in a sequence. So you can take 4 steps to public relations, write down the steps and get our participants to reorganize them. So that order there is incorrect. But then with a press of a button, we get them in the right order. Okay. That's a fun thing to do as a revisitor. Alternatively, a mnemonic or acronym. We love using those at Mr. Weta. One of my favorite acronyms, mnemonics is the password one that I believe you worked with this morning. Love that password. And also a quick quiz. So they're the sorts of things that work well to revisit material and help students make sure that they understand what they need to understand. And then we've got energizers, wuzzles and puzzles get the day started off well. We can build a profile or an avatar of a situation or a potential client or something like that. We can put that together and, you know, mind map it out. That can be fun. Stretch breaks are about bringing energy back into a room, or the old photo share that we've discussed already with the ball of wool. And here's another example of a photo share where there's lots of possibilities how you could use that photo share. So if you pop your answers in the chat, I'll be interested to see it. I see that Heather had a problem once. Her dog ate the remote. Now, I don't know what the percentages of that are, Heather, but let me just say that sounds pretty unlucky. Pretty unlucky. And Peter has a classic story about my son and the remote as well. And Peter, is it like a 20-second story?
I can make it into 10.
Go. While people are writing their answers down.
16-year-old son meant to be studying. I came home from work. He's on the couch using a long stick to change the channels on the TV. Where's the remote? Don't know, Dad. He'd gone to the trouble to go outside, find a nail, put the nail on the end of the stick so he could use it to poke the buttons on the TV. Of course, while he was outside, or I found the remote under the cushions of the couch. So the moral life, mate.
He should have gone with the maths, shouldn't he, Peter? 50% would have done it.
Yeah, exactly right. So there was more to it, but I had a bit of fun with it too when I found the remote by changing channels and doing things he couldn't understand. So
nice. I think on many levels he deserved it. So, yes. Folks, what could we do with this photo? What are some of the things, some of the principles or themes we could teach with this photo? Pop that in there in the chat. Heather's put an example of exclusion. Yeah, because the poor dude at the back, he's not getting involved. He'd like to be part of the fun, wouldn't he? Nice work, Heather. What else, folks? There's lots of possibilities. Distraction. Yes, Ratika. So the girls should be maybe focusing on their work or what they're supposed to be doing, but they're distracted by what's on the phone. What else could it be, folks? Are we out of ideas? Let me give you another example. What about confidentiality and privacy? Like, I don't know, he looks a little creepy, that guy in the back, doesn't he? He's having a little look at what the girls are doing. Okay. So, there's a few examples, but you can take one photo and use it in multiple ways. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's move into the action planning for this session. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to assign you into rooms. And I'm going to create breakout rooms. And with those breakout rooms, you will have a chance to answer a question I'm about to give you. I'm going to have the rooms open for 2 minutes, and then you'll get a countdown for an extra 60 seconds. So it'll go pretty quickly. Okay. Options look good. Okay, so here's the question I want you to focus on. It's pretty straightforward. I want you to share with your colleagues how you would get your participants involved. We talked about lots of ways of getting people involved in your online training. If you're planning on attending Dell Part 2 in a facilitator-led session, this is a big question for you. You've got to come up with some ways of getting your students involved. How are you going to do that? What are some of the things we've talked about in this webinar that you're going to use to your advantage? Even if you're not doing Part 2 through the facilitator-led sessions, you're going to end up doing some online training sometime in the future. It is pretty much inevitable. All trainers are switching to online. It's the rage at the moment. Okay, so when you're delivering online training, what are some of the things you're going to use that you've seen in this session? Can I get a quick little nod if you think you understand the question? Okay, I'm about to put you into breakout rooms. There's breakout rooms, 1 with 3 and a couple with 2. I'll just float in and listen without saying much. You got just 3 minutes in total to have a chat, and then we'll all get bounced back to this main room. You ready to go? All right, enjoy. Have a good chat.
Oh, good.
It's okay. How's it going? Are you on a break?
No, we're not in a break
Oh,
at all.
sorry,
We're in a
sorry,
breakout room.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
And
Hey guys, welcome
my
back
apologies
all.
for the door.
All right, good stuff, folks. Welcome back. Did you come up with some ideas? Okay, good stuff. Well, as I popped in the room, it seemed like you guys were having good ideas. So I'm super happy about that. And the ideas sounded good. This is what we've covered: the present landscape, 6 steps, give participants a taster, the core online, activities at work, and that little action planning episode. And I do hope that you'll take forward those ideas that you shared, both the ones you shared and the ones your colleagues shared as well, because stealing is okay. It's okay to get your best ideas off other people. We're pretty much at finish time for this webinar. Are there any questions that you want to ask?